Well, we've had a deep dive today, and here we go. We're going to diving into more.
Yes. Yes, we have a question written in our form already. It goes, yeah, straight to the heart of things. I could start with that one. It is from Marie Carré from Portugal.
Okay.
And Marie writes, I discovered A Course in Miracles about 10 years ago. The book acts on me like a balm, but there's a part that causes irritation, a blockage. From chapter 27, um, paragraph 8, that is. In eternity, where everything is one, a tiny, crazy idea was introduced, which the Son of God did not remember to laugh at. It's a translation. How, I thought, what is this? Then, what is this? Then, in the field of pure abstraction of God, love, eternity, in the one, what is this story that a part within eternity thinks something different from its own eternity? It seems to me an absolute contradiction. If the one can generate something other than itself, then does that mean it is not one? Even if what was dreamed is a nightmare, does this thought, this crazy idea, demonstrate that the one is not? Could a correspondence in form be fractal geometry, where each part contains all parts? Wouldn't it be something like that? I don't know if my attempt at demonstration is clear.
Yeah, the idea of fractals or of a hologram can come in, and many scientists look at the world and they call it a holographic universe where there seems to be parts and wholes, and each part contains the whole. But when I've asked Jesus about this, he says, it has been written the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And what he's really teaching us is the whole is real and the parts are not. And as well, that's a very famous passage in A Course in Miracles. So uh, Jesus, out of the whole Course in Miracles, he makes a reference to the prodigal son story, which he we saw in the script today in the movie. But you might say Jesus is rewriting Genesis, the Genesis of the Bible, and he's putting Genesis into one sentence, and that's what you're bringing up is the one sentence. Into eternity, where all is one, there crept a tiny, mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. I remember I was giving a talk in Wisconsin and I was teaching that line, sharing that line. And there was a long time Course in Miracles student who suddenly became very irritated at that one sentence. He was very irritated. And he started screaming in the middle of the room. He was so irritated at that one sentence that he kept screaming one word. He just kept going, crept, crept. He kept screaming, crept, crept, crept. He was very angry. He was like, and that's one little word, crept. Uh, he was very angry at that tiny mad idea for creeping, creeping into eternity. He was like setting out his vengeance. And I said, well, Jesus is just telling, he's just telling a story to give a little bit of context for the mind that's asleep and dreaming. And and yet I mentioned in the clarification of terms where he says the ego will ask many questions that this course has no answer for. How did the impossible happen? To whom did the impossible happen? And many more. He says there is no answer, but there is an experience. And an experience will come to end your doubting. So we could say that irritation is a derivative of fear. And fear is what the ego is. So he points in A Course in Miracles to the atonement or the correction. And he says, you are not responsible for the error, but you are responsible for accepting the correction. And what he's teaching us is that the atonement is the awareness that the separation never happened. So from inside the dream, everything that seems very real. And that's what I was reading from at the beginning, actually, of the beginning of the movie. I was reading from some chapters. One of them was chapter 27. And he says, what protects madness is the belief that it is true. It is the function of insanity to take the place of truth. So what it means is we have to shift our way of looking at everything. And I remember with Francis Zhu, we would talk about this. We would say, in the world, if you feel a feeling that doesn't feel good, or we'll say you perceive a problem, then you have to learn what to do as part of problem solving. And then you have to understand what the problem is. And then you go about searching for a solution or putting something into practice. In other words, if you wanted to build a house, you have to first learn how to build the house before you build it. You follow me? If you want to learn sewing or cooking, you have to first learn how to sew or learn how to cook before you sew and cook. So the understanding comes before the action or the fulfillment. And that's the way the ego thinks. In that way, it's a very linear process. You must understand before you act. But when you really look at the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles, Jesus says things in there like, your understanding is not required. He talks about these lessons. He says, practice them. You may not believe in them. You may actively resist these lessons. None of this will matter. And what he says then is he says, your understanding does not matter. But he doesn't leave it there. He says that peace and understanding go together and cannot be found apart. So what this means is Jesus is saying Until you experience perfect peace, you understand nothing, nothing at all. Only in the experience of perfect peace does understanding come in. And to the intellectual mind that, that says, wait a minute, no, I need to understand before I practice. I need to understand before I act. I don't want to act until I understand. And Jesus is saying, no, that's backwards. You actually are in a state of so much confusion that you absolutely don't know anything at all. So, to give you an example, Jesus says that when you're sleeping and when you're in this state of sleep, you cannot even tell the difference between pain and joy. That's pretty big. I I can't tell the difference between pain and joy. Pain and joy, it doesn't seem like they're even close. But he's saying, no, if you could tell the difference between pain and joy, actually, the pain would be gone forever. And you'd only know joy. So, this is what Jesus called dissociation. Not only has the mind pushed out from awareness, truth, oneness, love, but it is completely dissociated it. It's having a complete amnesia. But actually, it's what the amnesia is never understandable because it doesn't exist. It doesn't have a reality. It's a hallucination of separation. It's a figment of imagination of separation. So that's why you could say that this course is a calling, and you have to give yourself completely over to it in order to experience it. He says this course will be believed entirely or not at all. And so all of the questions, how did the separation happen? How could perfect love ever have a thought like that? Uh, how could eternity ever think of time? And the answer is it can't. So this is the great question in philosophy. If God is perfect love, how could this world exist? Uh, that's the question in philosophy. How can you get separation from eternal love? And Jesus is saying you absolutely cannot. So you start to realize that you cannot understand A Course in Miracles intellectually. You absolutely cannot understand it. It is absolutely impossible to have the understanding until the mind accepts forgiveness, until it accepts the correction, and then the understanding is apparent. But when the mind seems to be asleep and dreaming, it's asking questions that don't have any meaning. They're impossible questions. Jesus said the very first question that was ever asked, seemingly, is, "What am I?" So the entire cosmos is a projection of the first question, "What am I?" But he says, of course, that Christ never asked that question. Christ is in a state of eternal bliss, eternal oneness, eternal love with God, an eternal song of spirit and gratitude, and there are no questions in heaven. So this is the realm of questions. So in the end, you realize that Course in Miracles is not a philosophy. It's it's not a psychology. And in the end, you realize that it's not even a path because um, a path still implies a path to something. And Jesus is saying that something is love, and that love is all there is, and there is no opposite. Love is a law without an opposite. So that's where you have faith. I mean, when I started practicing the faith of practicing the course up about 40 years ago, uh, I've experienced so many miracles I couldn't say them in a brief way, but so many miracles, so many heart openings that actually what you start to realize is that you start to feel differently about the world. You start to lose track of time. There are moments too where time disappears entirely and you have completely lost track of time. You have times when the body doesn't feel at all. You have times that feel so vast and so expansive that those are really powerful experiences, but those are not experiences with questions. There are no questions in those direct experiences. We see that the ego is the questioning aspect of the mind. And yet, the mind, in its wholeness and completion, it asks no questions. So even when we ask questions or we're irritated at something, it's just fear. It's fear of the answer coming up. It's fear of the experience. I know many people who have studied the Course for many years and they say, the Course is telling me that I'm afraid of love and I don't get that. And and it's because fear and love don't go together. It love is understandable, but fear is not. And so perfect love casts out fear. Jesus says, unless there is perfect love, you won't know only perfect love. In other words, there will be a fear state until there is a realization that transcends everything. And that's why it takes faith. It takes faith. But I think as you have the faith, then the miracles come. I think of Mary in that scene where she hugs Jesus. She she says, I know you are the Christ, you are the living Son of God, and even now I know you are here to bring us, to show us eternal life. Then I watched as Jesus was walking. When Lazarus came out of the grave, they just panned and I looked and I saw Mary on the top of the hill and she was rejoicing like her prayer had been answered. And yeah, there it is. I'm not surprised. She looked like she was not surprised by that experience. Almost like she thought, there's my answer. Yeah, just what I'd expect from the Christ. And so yeah, it's something I think where we just have to say, okay, I'm not going to try to intellectually understand what I'm told is not required. When Jesus is saying, I do require your willingness and I do require your faith and I do require you to practice, like practice what I'm teaching you in everyday situations. Those three things are required. Understanding is not. And for the mind that's identified with the person and intellectual knowledge, then that's very unsatisfying. It just does not solve the question, but and that's why it's irritating because the ego is like, I mean, I just saw that on Facebook yesterday where somebody said, if God, it was Instagram, if God is God, why doesn't God prove it? That's what that's what it said. I'm like, okay. I think for me, yeah, I'm experiencing the proof, so that's why I'm not asking if God is God. I'm in the proof. So thank you for bringing that up. That is, I always hear like two main questions on my travels around the world, and you've just asked one of the two main questions that I hear around the world. How could this happen in the first place? That's the question. That's the number one asked question in the world. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Marie. And thank you, David. It's a powerful kickoff. Well, I see we have four live hands. And before we go to any of them, I just want to share a reminder for our Spanish speakers live. You will actually have consecutive translation. So just leave some brief pauses when you're speaking so that our translators can stay with you. But I think we can go to Ana Narcisa now.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Hi there.
Hi. Hi, David. Hi, everyone. Um, it's good that I can take pauses in between so I can breathe because my heart is beating so fast. Um, First of all, thank you so much once again. It was it was just beautiful what happened. I had this memory that came that I had completely forgotten about, exactly remembering who I really am in this metaphor that when I was little, I was thinking that I was not good at drawing or painting. And the only painting that I saw and I was like, wow. And I was absolutely mesmerized by it. It was a painting of the face of Jesus. And now I know why, because I was remembering who I am. I just remember now that painting and I was like, how could I forget it? It was, and it's not something so easy to paint, like even houses or trees. I was like, and the face that has eyes and it needs to transmit something. And it was really looking into me. So thank you so much for bringing this back to me. Um, and I have this question that I seem to come back to it again and again and again. And I'm just like, when you are also talking about this story that we tell ourselves of self-pity or victimism, or, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm just tired of this story." But it's still there. And so um the main message of Jesus of forgiveness, um I've spent many years of my life thinking that I was forgiving my mother, my father, my brother. And then I came to this other realization that forgive them for what they have not done. So now I'm in this phase, and um, I seem to be okay with it. But I have this other doubt, and one of the writings today that I think is from the course, it was also saying, or in the movie, I think I saw it. Yeah, I think it was on the movie when he said, what father would not love their children, would take care of their children. So I realized that in my childhood, I was going to church a lot, and I have listened to this message of a father that gave his son to in sacrifice, and then my father was not there, so my mind was like, what father is this that loves? And I came to forgive that and the abandonment and the rejection and so on. And now I think it was something that it was written, that it was from the course, that of course the message of loving unconditionally, and that there is that we're all innocent, that nothing has been done. And then so I don't know with who and in what circumstances to act like that. Because I brought this other question at some point when I spoke about an ex-boyfriend that he had narcissistic behavior. And with him, I didn't knew about the course, but I was forgiving every time because he was alcoholic. So then he didn't know what he was doing. He was innocent because it was the alcohol fault that he was behaving like that. And I seem to learn with the years that I should see red flags because I'm too empathetic and I'm an easy target. and, and um and so seeing all these roles of the victim and the one that is doing something bad and so on, I'm still at this point. That's why I'm coming back to this question of in the so-called world, is it then that we should still have some what is called boundaries or not have contact with some people? Because my mind is now going to these memories also where I saw after that relationship so-called red flags, and I would still go further and then did ended up in not love. And so if my mind wants to see abandonment and rejection and betrayal, it will see it. And so I have to be very mindful of what I'm what I am what my mind is focused on, what is seeing. But still, like at this present moment, I'm going to see some relationship that I haven't seen since like a year ago, maybe. And some of them seem to have done things to me. And then I have to think who I'm going to see now. Am I going to allow this now into my life or not? And the first thought is like, of course, no one did anything to you. But then I go also into the past and I remember, yeah, but now you have to apply those things that you learn and still keep um, safety, because otherwise, it's gonna happen again. So
Thank you, Anna. I'm just
yeah,
gonna pop in here. Yeah. It sounds like yeah, maybe your questions come through. Yeah, maybe it could be a good opportunity for David to answer.
I'm complete. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, we start to learn from Jesus that there's three things that are the same. And the three things that are really just three in one, disguised as three, are projection, rejection, and judgment. Judgments are always projected. Projection is a dynamic, a defense mechanism where it always involves rejection. So let's say you meet this ex-boyfriend that was a narcissist, and you meet an ex-boyfriend. Whatever you perceived in the boyfriend is something that you have projected from the mind and therefore rejected. Like, I'm Anna Narcissa, and this is my boyfriend, and we're different. I'm a woman, he's a man. And then he has certain characteristics or traits. Maybe one of them is narcissism. And so the talks of boundaries are always personal boundaries. And that is just the way it seems to be set up by the ego. But we see Jesus and we see some kind of a transmission that he seems to not have any boundaries. He seems to be saying, I'm the Christ and so are you. He doesn't seem to have a boundary in between it. It's just pure love. I'm the same as you. It's like I'm love and you're love, and that's the truth. That's why he would say, I condemn you not. Even if there was 25 men with rocks and they're all ready to condemn the woman, Jesus says, he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. All the men drop their stones and walk away. She says, what do you have to say for me? I condemn you not. It's just pure love. There's no boundaries. So we might say that opening our mind to recognize the Christ is to let go of all our boundaries, because all the boundaries are personal in some sense. They're part of our mask. And we talked about this before, where I was saying, some people say, but I still feel boundaries are helpful. And I say, yeah, in the sense that that's what guidance is about. When you're contemplating an interaction or a holy encounter, it's important to be very intuitive and be guided just whether to meet somebody, whether to stay there for a while or have a brief encounter. The guidance takes over, and that is what carries you in place of boundaries. Instead of kind of trying to say to the person, here's my boundaries, don't cross them. You say, Holy Spirit, you give me the words, you use this puppet any way you want for healing, because I want to feel the connection. I want to feel the true, real connection here. And then you can say, I need help. So over the years, what I've said, I've had a few phrases that have helped me out. One of them is, if you spot it, you got it. It's easy to remember. If you spot it, you got it. And some people say, what does that mean? It means if you perceive it, you believe it. You can't perceive it unless you first believe it. So, for example, with narcissism, you cannot perceive narcissism unless you believe in it. It's an egoic concept. So imagine with Jesus, he's in a room full of people. Does he see a prostitute? No. Does he see a Pharisee? No. Sadducee? No. He sees the whole room, the whole situation in a holistic way of just an opportunity to teach love and extend love. But he doesn't identify any of the particulars of the perception because his only purpose is to extend love. But for you, I think it is practical that when you are contemplating joining with somebody, just to go into prayer and really tune in to what is this for and what am I called to extend. It always helps to have a clear-cut goal in front before you go into the encounter, because that way the Holy Spirit helps you steer through these encounters without boundaries. The boundary way of thinking is, okay, I'm going to meet somebody. Where are they at? And where am I at? What are my boundaries? And communicate those boundaries so people don't cross those boundaries. You see, that's how the ego sees the situation in terms of protectionism. I need to be protected. Whereas Jesus is teaching us to pray and listen and follow and just feel the the natural connection and the natural flow that's available always. And and that's very different. So in one sense for me, it's usually very quick, but people write me lots of questions. They write me, uh, can I come on your podcast? Will you come on my podcast? Can we meet? Where do you live? Can I come and see you? Can I talk to you? I mean, I just get lots and lots of communications, but prayer handles them all. It's not like I have to sit there and kind of write back to them, well, I live here. Here's my phone number, but here's my boundaries. You know, I don't write those kind of things. But actually that shows you more and more that trust would settle every problem now. As you trust and you go inward, what you're really saying is, Holy Spirit, be with me. Holy Spirit, help me, show me the way, guide me, lead me. And that becomes your mode of operating. That becomes your way of dealing with time and space, is through intuitive guidance. And I have to say it's quite amazing. It handles absolutely everything. Even if you need to take a pause and you just say, "Oh, I'll need to get back to you on that," without having to always have an immediate answer. If you don't feel an immediate answer, then take some time and just pray and be with it until you feel something very strongly and very clearly. So yeah, you can see where this is going. It's kind of letting the guidance, the intuitive guidance, just take the lead with everything. And then as you do that more consistently, more as like a habit, then the need for boundaries starts to fade away. You found something that works that's better than boundaries. And that guidance does include what's helpful for you. So the guidance does include an aspect of what may seem to be a boundary, but it also comes through in a way where you're just trying to connect and to be truly open. You're not trying to push anybody away. And then you get more and more connected with it. So when you get like whatever spam emails or things that are just clearly not for you, you don't even hesitate with the delete button. There's not even a question. It's just like ding, 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 ding. It's very easy. It's very quick. It's very rapid. It's like the spirit. You're just joining with the spirit and what's most truly helpful, and you're merging in that prayer so that it becomes, involuntary. You don't have to consciously think your way through it. So I hope that helps. You have a follow-up? Another part?
Hang on one moment. You're muted still.
Thank
There you
you.
go.
Just something very short. When you said email and delete it seemed like very, very clear for me, but just in case, is it also applicable to people? Like, because then there is indeed people that we shouldn't have maybe in our lives. It's not just like, yeah, no one did anything to anyone and let everyone is welcome.
Yeah. It's like what we're really praying is we're saying, Spirit, you be in charge of everything, including the encounters that I'm supposed to have, even the steps you're supposed to take, or the people you're supposed to live with. If you are to live with any people, you really do trust the guidance to show the way with all of it. And there can come those times when, like, there's a section in the manual for teachers, uh, which is called "What are the levels of teaching?" And Jesus says there are no levels, but he gives 3 levels anyway for the mind. That's very helpful. And the second level, he calls it a fairly intense teaching learning situation in which the two appear to separate. And he says each one has learned the most that they can learn from the relationship. In other words, that it's a temporary relationship, and it does seem to have an expiration date, and it does seem to have a sense of completion, that each one has learned the most that they can learn from each other. And so he's like saying, don't have any guilt about that. That's just the way it works. The first one's about casual encounters that are really all very purposeful. The second one is two people who enter into a fairly intense teaching learning situation and then appear to separate because their learning is maximal. And then the third is lifelong uh, partners, which he describes. If they decide to learn it, the perfect lesson is laid before them and can be learned. So, I think that middle section there is just meant to take the fear and the doubt and the guilt away. There are guided points where people are to go apart. And it's very matter of fact. It's actually part of the plan. It's part of the script. Even though the ego, oh, what did I do wrong? Or could it have been different? Or could it have been prolonged? Or, that's just the ego trying to judge what's in the script. But I think ultimately you just start to realize that everything is about clearing away the guilt, because he does say guilt is always totally insane and has no reason. So he's basically teaching us in no situation ever do you have a reason or a justification to feel guilty. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. In fact, if you keep following that, then you won't have any boundaries because you won't have any guilt. If you keep going and trusting in that and learning that in the fullest way, accepting that fully in your mind. So, yeah, that's it. That's it's a beautiful teaching. Yeah, thank you.
Very practical. Yeah. Thank you.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I see we have another hand. We have plenty of hands. Reggiana Miranda, I see that you're next. And I think maybe our tech team. Okay, great.
Hey, are you
Yes.
listening? How nice the opportunity to be here with you.
Oh,
Thank you very much. I think 2 months ago, I was praying because I was scared of the war. And then I was praying to Spirit, I don't remember the time that I was so afraid. And I was thinking that we could die and then we could kill. I could kill, I could die. And then I ask, Holy Spirit, take it from my mind again. I was not believing in it anymore, but I'm afraid. And then I received email from Rafael that he is want together to be together with the volunteers to translations in Portuguese. And then I said, thank you, Holy Spirit. In the time that I'm translating, I'm with Jesus again. I feel Jesus again. And then, but always, even if I pray, even if I listen, even if I follow, many times I doubt to what I really want. It's my ego, or it's my arrogance, or is the guidance? And how can I know? This is my question. It's so nice to be with you, David.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Regiana. Yeah, I did. Raphael did send me a message just saying you felt even to come closer, maybe and to live with us for a time. Because that's also just another deep opportunity to practice the discernment. Um, for example, last night I think they talked. Uh, Jason and Pete and Soren came on to talk about the palettes, the blue palettes, and the stage, and having Soren was saying having to trust so much to just show up with such openness to say, okay, what do we all feel? And if it felt heavy in the group, then that was the sign that there was something to come, something light would come through, which is great to practice with the group. And then when it came in to do the shading, they have all the material for the shading, and it was very miraculous, just the right amount for the shading. But then the question came up, was steel poles welded together, or no, Deanie was saying no, it feels heavy. Feels heavy. I steel and welding, no. It's not like Deanie's not like a welder or anything, like she's talking to Greg and Sora and going, she just is like speaking from the heart. I don't feel it. I feel something lighter, ropes. And and you see how beautiful that is, because then everyone has to, Soren was saying, I have to let go of thinking I know what's best for the project, you know? And this happens all the time with us. It happens in so many areas where you come together in the moment and you feel you're there together for the connection and to receive the guidance, but it takes a moment of like surrender to let it come through, because it has to be for everyone. It's not whose guidance, your guidance, my guidance, or personal guidance. It's more just like what is in the joy, what is in the flow. And some weeks ago, Jason was doing a levels of mind, but he was talking about, I think it was our friend from uh, from Germany who was asking about prayer. And Jason pulled up all these quotes from the course about prayer and what it means to pray together. And uh, the lonely journey to God fails because it excludes the one that it would find. It's very much that Jesus is teaching us that really to learn the prayer of the heart and really learn the deeper prayer that is for the good of everyone. for the good of the whole universe, really. That takes quite a refinement of discernment to tune in to what's for the good of the whole. Because to the ego, there is no such thing. It's like, well, let's take a vote, or let's have a debate, or let's figure it out. It's there's not that openness. Like, no, let's pray together and be shown together what where we all feel it. We all feel it. That that's seemingly pretty rare in this world, but actually that's the whole point of everything. Is when we learn to pray together, we feel connected, it feels light, it feels joyful, and frequently it comes through in surprising and unexpected ways, where someone who doesn't seem to have a lot of past reference with what's at hand can often be used as the spokesperson by the Spirit that will help the whole thing resolve, the prayer come through. So even with the Course in Miracles, when they had finished the dictation and they had all these black binders of the course, when they came together, it was Bill and Helen and Judy and Ken. And they didn't know what to do. None of them were publishers, and they just had the books, the teachings in black binders, big black binders. And so they all prayed. And they all were very accomplished in their professions and very, very bright, very intellectual, but they had to pray. What do we do now? And so they got into the habit of praying, and then Bill was like shaking his head, no. Ken Wapnick, no. And then finally, Helen Schuckman, they were all waiting for Helen to just automatically, she was the scribe, so they all kind of looked at Helen. And then when it came to Helen, Helen said, the answer will come from Judy. She was like it was a volleyball game. She batted the ball over. Ken batted it away. Bill batted it away. Then Helen batted it over to Judy. And then Judy just waited, and she said, they're all waiting on Judy, waiting. She said, make the commitment first. Jesus is telling me that we all have to make a commitment first. And they're all like, what? Commit to what? What are we committing to? We have to commit our entire lives to the care and stewardship of A Course in Miracles before we will receive an answer. So, next step. So they all made the commitment. They committed their entire lives, which is no small thing because they're like research psychologists and professors. And, this is kind of a big deal for all of them to commit their life to. When it started, they were scared. When it continued on, they were confused, and now they have to make a lifelong commitment to it. They did. And then Judy told me the next day that this man from Mexico, living in Mexico, named Red, called her up on the phone and said, is this Judy Scutcheon? She said, yes, it is. And he said, my name's Red, and you really need to get this Course in Miracles printed. She said, yeah, I know. We were just praying about that last night. And Red said, oh, that's good. Well, I want to be a part of that. And she said, oh, you do? And he said, yeah, prior to this call, I was guided to sell a piece of property in Mexico. And I have all the funds that you need for the first publication of A Course in Miracles. So it was pretty quick. The four of them prayed together. Helen said, Judy will hear. Judy heard, make the commitment first. They make the commitment, and then they received the guidance the next day from Red, and they had the money. because they didn't have any money to publish the course. And so that story kind of shows how it works, that we have to get out of the habit of trying to, like Maria was asking about this tiny mad idea. We have to get out of the habit of trying to figure it out or come up with our own problem-solving solution for how our life is to go, how our steps are to go. But when we connect, like you connected with Raphael, and then he connected with me, then I connected with a group of people, and everybody became aware. He said, Regiana may raise her hand or may not on the Q&A, but we were all very much aware of your interest in coming to Strawberry and maybe staying on longer and just immersing in. But that's just a good example of how the Spirit works, where they were all praying on what do we do, what's our next step, and then Helen pointed to Judy. Judy heard make the commitment first. They all made the commitment. Then they were ready for that next phase. But until they made the commitment, there was going to be no instructions. And that's another good teaching point, that the commitment belongs in the front. That oftentimes we ask for answers. We're saying, Jesus, help me with this and help me there and give me instructions and tell me what to do. And Jesus is just like, okay, are you willing to commit first, And that's a beautiful reminder too, that that's how it works. When we make some deep kind of commitment in our mind, then that opens the way for a flood of seeming decisions or seeming steps that flow naturally from that commitment. And the commitment comes first. And that is a beautiful example of how our faith grows deeper. Because sometimes if we're hedging, if we're not sure we want to make the commitment, then we shouldn't be surprised if we get mixed messages from the world, because we're hesitating on the inside, and then the mixed messages are reflecting that hesitation. So I feel like that's the way, and I know you Raphael said you watched a lot of my videos there for a period of time, just for hours and hours and days on end, where you were just absorbed with the videos. And then yeah, that can happen too with a lot of people, where they just feel there's some kind of a deep connection and they're taken into it. And then it still comes down to praying, committing, and then the steps are part of an unwinding from the self-concept. And that's part of the spiritual awakening, to kind of seemingly unwind from self-concepts of the world. Beautiful. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you at Strawberry. Oh. Oh, sweet.
Oh, yeah, so lovely. Thank you, Reggiana. Thank you for sharing. Oh. Okay, will I see Carolina Campos with her hand now? Hand up. Oh, you are muted again. You were unmuted for a moment. There.
Yeah. Hola a todos. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí.
I'm excited to be here.
Así como les platicaba la semana pasada, este jueves fui a la
As I was
cárcel
telling
de
you
Guadalajara.
last week, this week I went to the jail again.
Mientras hacía la fila, estaba orando para que el Espíritu Santo hablara por mí.
So I was in line, I was praying for the Holy Spirit to talk through me.
Llegué y vi a mi amiga y lo primero que me dijo fue, deténme tantito el bebé porque necesito correr por el libro.
As soon as I saw my friend, she said, hold my baby because I need to run and get the book, The Course in Miracles.
Ya. Em, Llegamos y me dice, no sé qué tiene este libro. Se han acercado personas de aquí y me han preguntado que si cómo llegó a mí, o sea, a mi amiga.
Yeah, she asked, I don't know what this book has, but a lot of people has come and asked me, how does the book made it? How did it come to you?
Entonces, pues les dijo que venía de mí, de su amiga, y me dijo, Sandra me preguntó, y me dijo, ¿sí
Yeah,
sabes quién es ella?
yeah, she said, my friend Carolina gave it to me. She said, Sandra asked me, but yeah, I don't know who's
Y
Sandra.
um, para platicar un poquito el contexto, em,
Just to give a context,
en el 2009 hubo un incendio en Hermosillo donde
in
fallecieron
2000,
40.
in 2009, there was a big burn in Hermosillo, where I live, where a lot of people were died.
Em, Mi hija mayor resultó con quemaduras y otras lesiones.
My oldest daughter had burned, really severe burn in her body.
Y Sandra es una de las socias o dueñas de la guardería.
And Sandra was the owner of that child care place.
Em, entonces le dije a mi amiga, sí sé quién es. Recuerdo haber visto una foto de ella hace muchos años, pero no, no creo que la identifique.
I remember her. I've seen a picture of her years ago, but I don't know if I know in person who she is.
Continuamos profundizando sobre las lecciones.
We start going deeper about the book and the lessons.
Eh, Más compañeras de ella están muy interesadas en el libro y en las enseñanzas.
Yeah, other friends of her are really interested in the course and the teachings of the course.
Y el tiempo se nos pasó muy rápido.
So the time went by really fast.
Ah, Cuando salí, fui la última persona en salir.
I was the last person to leave jail.
Me despedí de mi amiga y en ese momento volteé y la persona que tenía enfrente fue Sandra.
As I said goodbye to my friend, I opened my eyes and the person I saw was that person, Sandra.
Fue un lapso de segundos, pero fue tan mágico para mí
It was just a fraction of a second, but it was so magical for me
porque la pude ver con los mismos ojos como veo a mi amiga.
because I was able to see her with the same eyes as I see my friend.
Entonces, estoy muy agradecida con Jesús porque ha sido, o sea, salir. Entendí que en ese momento me sentí tan libre.
I'm really grateful for Jesus because I understood that I can feel free.
Lo siento mucho amor y agradecimiento.
feel really a lot of love and gratitude.
Y sí, sí me siento lista para platicar con ella.
And I feel ready to talk about Jesus with her.
Yeah, that's so precious. It's like when we're ready in our heart, we just get so many opportunities. And it's like when we say yes and we commit to Jesus, then Jesus starts to use us in many ways. It's like Jesus was just waiting for us to say yes and to commit. And then he's really ready to go to work right away. And the opportunities just present themselves very naturally and sometimes very rapidly, which is what we need. We need to just have a rapid series of opportunities after we say our yes in our heart. And so, under the Holy Spirit's guidance, this is how we approach revelation. That Jesus just gives us a series of opportunities to extend the miracle, and oftentimes they can be very quick. But as we move through them very quickly, then we feel transported. We feel beyond our personality self. We feel like we're just being used, and our connection with Jesus is deepening very quickly, very rapidly. So it's like with our friend Jeffrey, who has a prison ministry. He just said yes to it and started to go to the prisons, and doors opened. He was even surprised at the guards and the warden, and lots of people uh, became very excited about the A Course in Miracles and about the teachings. And then there was even a Christian chaplain who kept started hearing from the prisoners about there's an amazing man in here and there's an amazing book that we've come across. So that opened up the connection between Jeffrey and the chaplain, the Christian chaplain, and things just took off with so many miracles. He was able to get movies in for them to watch and take some of our Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment, take the reviews in so the prisoners could study the reviews and then watch the movies. It was part of a healing in the mind that was activated. And then this went on for some years, and then they finally started having me get videos for the prisons, and they would get them on tablets because they were allowed to have like tablets, electronic tablets in the prisons, so they could watch the videos and do the exercises, and so I think we just remember that Jesus is in charge, and all we have to do is stay connected moment by moment of what feels deep and helpful. And then the opportunities just show themselves very obviously. They present themselves. So we don't have to figure it out. We don't have to plan it out. And then recently Jeffrey was down here in Mexico, and the feeling was, felt like a Spanish ministry here. So now he has invitations in June to June, July to go into uh, through video conferencing to go into the prisons in Mexico City with the longtime course student helping him go lead the way, and also with Guadalajara, the second largest city in Mexico. So it just takes off and keeps expanding. Years ago, I got a Course in Miracles book that was translated by a professor named Guzman, and he got it into the Mexican prison system maybe 20 years ago. And it got so expansive in the Mexican prison system that many prisoners got early parole. They were having huge transformations in their perception, being in prison with not a lot of distractions and having this. It wasn't even sanctioned by anybody. It was just a professor who made his own translation of the course into Spanish, and then it made it into the prison system and took off. Jesus used it for many years. And his daughter, the professor passed away, but his daughter is still connected doing the work. So it just shows us that if we're just willing to say yes and be used, then Jesus just gives us the opportunities. And sometimes it's even surprising how quick and how fast it happens. But all we do is we just say yes, like the original four did with the course. They just said yes, and then now it's been over 50 years since the original four came together and first prayed together on and were asked to make a commitment. Now it's past already the 50th anniversary. So it's amazing that Jesus was able to get these teachings into this book, into this particular form. And now we're all his miracle workers. We're like worker bees for Jesus. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Carolina. So lovely to see how it keeps progressing for you. Yeah. Okay, well, David, we have two more hands. Does it feel good to continue?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I see Charles here. Hi, Charles.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much for all your teachings. You know, I kind of laugh sometimes when I open my computer because there'll be like 3 open windows and 2 of them are your lectures. And that's like, yeah, I'm listening to you at the gym. I'm listening to you. I wasn't really planning on today asking a question, but you actually came into my dream last night for the first time. And so here you're in my waking dream. Last night you're in my sleeping. But in the dream, I was saying, David, you know this is your last lifetime, don't you? And you started laughing at me, or laughing. And I was like, yeah, cute, but what about me? You know, I'm like, and you just kept laughing. And I think the laughing was sort of like, you'll figure it out, or you know the way, you're just not. I to kind of cut to the chase more, I think maybe you've already answered it. Like, I've had revelatory experiences, I've had samadhi experiences, but the peace is not stabilized, the joy is not stabilized, and all I can come to is like, this is just, I'm fooling myself. Like I think I made the full devotion, but I must not have, or I just is more to do there than I think there is, or I'm not sure. I just kind of like your reflection on that. It's in terms of your own experience. Again, it's amazing to me when you describe your experience. I think the ego is so incredibly dense. You know, I was listening to Yogananda yesterday, who I consider like a primary teacher in my life, and he said, I argue with God every day that he shouldn't have done this to us. Like he wasn't, at least in his belief system, like he thought God put us here. And so that teaching in the course is like really relieving to me, because that was pissing me off for a long time too, that I thought God put me here. And so I really appreciate you continuing to remind us of that part of the teaching. Also, just in terms of the script as written in Miracles Collapse Time, I guess I you know, some of these concepts, I think with the ego for my own self, they're really hard to completely grok or understand. But is that just that there's a loose set of circumstances and people, like I was supposed to encounter you for sure and whatever, but I could say, very nice, David, but I'm not going to do this. Or the course, very nice, I'm not going to do this. Or Yogananda, very nice, I'm not going to do this. You know, that I would just extend it out, like there's people and circumstances are going to be in the script, but how long it takes me to get with it, like Helen Schuckman, like, yeah, I know it's true, but I don't believe it. You know, that's pretty, like she could have chose to believe it, I would assume. And that would maybe be different in her experience of that lifetime. So, yeah, I like with your own experience and like you're in the trailer with, I'm from the Midwest. I know what those woods are like. It's like mosquitoes and humid and it's not fun. And you're eating pancakes and the roaches and snakes moving. And I'd be like, I'm out of here. Like, Jesus, you know, you got to kick up the divine providence or something here because I'm not doing this. But that devotion that you have, like, is when you describe what that was, like that's very profound for me, and I think I must maybe still be in denial that my devotion is not completely there, or maybe I'm just in denial about how much there is to work out. Another funny aside on that kind of stuff is I you know, I know you had some experience with the Sikhs, and I did too, and I went to the Sikhs, their retreat in New Mexico, and there was one of the oldest Sikhs there, and he had the long beard and the turban, whatever, and he said it takes, these are his words, not mine, a very long time to realize something. And he said, God is a complete asshole. And I think what he meant was he believed God put us here, and that, and I guess in the Course's term, God would be insane if he put us here, or that if he created this. So, I mean, these examples of like how dense the ego is, even for people who are very devoted or tremendously devoted, is like, it's a lot to take in. Like, just kind of checking myself about where is my own maybe denial or blind spots around how to stabilize my own peace. And again, I really so enjoy your joy and your peace and your love. You know, I started out with Marianne and other teachers, and I think because we're so early in this teaching, it might take a very long time to anchor into that joy, even for teachers. But I do see you there. And so those are the two things I wanted to run by you, just like stabilizing the peace with devotion. And the script written, is that like a loose set of circumstances that we can, when he says the only choice you have is how long you take to learn the curriculum, or is it really so specific about whether you will or will not in any given lifetime?
Yeah, I think from lesson 158, the script is written. The most important word in that sentence is the last word, written, meaning the script is the past. We're perceiving the past. We're, as he says in lesson 158, you're but reviewing mentally what has already gone by, looking back on it as if it's still happening. So lesson 158 is very, very deep in terms of that. That's where he says the script is written. But I don't know if you ever cook pasta or linguine, if you ever get a strand of pasta or linguine out of to cook it, and it comes out of the package, the long package as a line. And it has a finite, it has a beginning. The spaghetti has a beginning and an end. It's a line. It's a line. And in one sense, miracles seem to collapse that line, but the line is all the past anyway. It's the linguine or the pasta is the past. And occasionally you have these moments where the line gets turned around, and so you look at it at an angle where it's just a point. And really that's really where the atonement, you're asking to see the world from not a linear way, but a simultaneous way. Because right now there's it's popular timeline jumping and all the different timelines that are going on, but they're all going on simultaneously. And so it still comes back to opening to the present moment in a very, very deep way. So it's not something that you can understand. It's almost like the prayer is to be taken into that experience. And basically the ego, it made the timeline as a self-concept. So it's like as a character that seems to be moving through time, that's very fixed as a concept, as a self-concept. And it seems to take a lot of miracles to loosen the mind from that way of looking at the world, because we're used to looking at and thinking about our lives in the world on the timeline, and this spiritual awakening is more of a loosening from time. Even things like sleep patterns, exercise patterns, eating patterns, different rhythms and repetitions that we become accustomed to as the familiar, as our familiar world and our familiar life. And then the spirituality is more of a of transcendence of that, so that we start to lose track of time in a very very strong way. We start to lose track of the passage of time as we give ourselves over more to the miracle. It's like everything starts to blend together, and it's like we're taken up or we're caught in this deepening or this quickening or this swirl. Is the best way I can describe it. But it does take a lot of trust, because a lot of the beliefs that we have in relationships, in survival of the body, in accomplishments, and checking off things that we want to do or have done, there's a lot that goes into this self-concept that has to be just really loosened. And all I know is when I was traveling around the country and the world, I just got swept up in it so much that I would literally wake up some days and not have any idea where I was or what day it was. I started to lose track of the calendar, lose track of location, in many ways. And then when I went back to my little peace house and I lived there with two cats, oh wow, did we go? We went we went out there. We really, all of us, me and the two cats, we lost track of the calendar. We didn't know, we didn't even know what day it was. We didn't have any kind of anchor points in the world. It was really a big letting go of linear time. And linear time seems so fixed. It's like asking a fish, what's it like? What's life like without the water? And they're like, fish is like, it's just such an assumption. It's so part of the fabric of our self-concept that the script is written is more just saying, if you keep practicing with these new time ideas, you will start to see things in your world as the same, and you'll start to see time in a different way too, even time itself. But we have to be very patient. Like we have to just kind of let go and enjoy of the flow of how things are unfolding and the pace that they unfold, because we can't really steer this intellectually. It's more of like a trust, faith, divine providence, and then we start to naturally loosen from some of these linear perceptions that we've had. But yeah, the important thing is to be very patient and content with it, and keep our focus on our purpose, what our purpose is. Because the ego has so many different purposes for everything. If we follow the ego's menu, it can seem like we lose our connection to God. We're trying to get things done, we're trying to accomplish things. The time pressures, worries, anxieties can creep in pretty quickly with the ego's kind of agenda. It wants to freeze us in time. Like the Lego movie with Mr. Business, he wants to spray the crackle glue and freeze all the characters in time, uh, because that's his goal, is to make a static concept, a static reality. But reality isn't like that at all. We don't need glue to try to hold things together. We have to loosen from these associations. So, yeah, I think there are like miracle intervals or out of pattern experiences that come, that we feel just interesting connections. And even you saying me, I showed up in your dream and was laughing, that's like a little sign, a little interlude that got you to come on and ask your question. It's like a little dream symbol. And that's beautiful that you followed it too. That you really felt like, okay, I think I'm supposed to put my hand up and say something here. Because those are those little nudges that we have throughout the day. And as the spirit trying to reach us, just say, yeah, here's something for you. Try this. Try this. And it just wants us to go deeper. Yeah. Sure.
I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit. I know when I say this, but I think in the last session, I'll make this brief. It occurred to me, the script is written is okay, what it is, but trying to understand it too much is more like the ego getting involved again. That it's in the holy instant that I'm released, and even that can be problematic if I'm too focused on the script is written,
Yeah.
and not on the holy instant. Is that I'm being?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think there's just some brief helpful things that come up from the script is written. One is that it's a done deal and you can't mess it up. And I think it's in lesson 135. What could you not accept if you but knew that there's one who knows you're good with every circumstance and encounter. It's this sense like, wow, okay, I really can't mess this up. I can feel a relaxation come in with knowing I can't mess it up. Because sometimes it feels to the human mind like, oh my gosh, I don't want to make a wrong turn here and go on a detour. I don't want to waste time. But I feel like the script is written is just basically saying, like this Edward Markham quote, there is a destiny that makes us brothers. None goes his way alone. All that we send into the lives of others comes back into our own. It's this feeling, this grand feeling like everything is working together for our good. And the Spirit's just trying to get our attention to come back into our mind and be aware of the purpose. What is our purpose? It takes a while to come into focus because we're used to everything having a different purpose in the world. And Jesus wants us to have a single purpose and really be like a laser beam, like really collapse time and come to God in the most rapid way possible. So I think that's very insightful that you don't want to get caught up in the ego trying to give you its understandings of the scriptures written because that could be like a rabbit hole, falling down another rabbit hole. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Yeah, very joyful to see you. Okay, well, we have one final hand up, David, from Diana Rodriguez.
Hello. Thank you very much. Um, I just wanted to share, felt like sharing something that came up very strongly during the movie. My mom passed away recently, and it has been a very deep process of unwinding, of going deeper into death, conception, into body, more even than I thought I already had understood. So when I was watching Today Jesus, I got near to that, even closer to that again, especially when I'm happy that we didn't see much about his physical suffering. But when I used to think about that, it was still very hard for me to grasp, to go through. And that happened to me as I saw my mom in the hospital. I was with her for about a month, and she was physically suffering. She was not actually suffering, but she was connected and had a tumor, and I had to struggle like back and forth, like believing in the body and not believing in the body, believing in illness, not believing in illness, believing in death and not believing in death. So it was a constant like coming and going. It was a real deep challenge. But at the end of the way, I could see her as the innocent child of God. And that was my big gift from our relationship that was a strain, from a relationship that I perceived hard and distant. I could finally meet with her and see her as the innocent child of God. And this has been a huge miracle in my life because I've had close deaths, physical deaths in my story. But this has been the strongest one, the closest one. I already thought I had untangled and I had forgiven so much. And it was not final until that moment that I could come and see her as the innocent child of God. And I could see Jesus. It was the same thing. It was just like today. He was free. And she was free. And this was so hard when I had the body, the ill body in the hospital. At times it was very hard. But I had to see through that. I had to go through that, beyond that. And this has been a huge gift. And then just another very deep insight from when the apostles feel guilty, they say, we weren't there, we abandoned him. And I felt like that with my mom also for a while, that I didn't come earlier in her illness, that I didn't come see her earlier. And just when I felt it, when I could, when my heart could, like, loosen and come. And I understood them so well when I heard them, just with this guilt, with this bubbling guilt. Like, he's gone, he's not here. We're guilty of, we're partly guilty of this. And they saw that they butchered him like that, apparently. And it wasn't like that. And Mary comes and said, no, he's alive. He's here, he's alive. And that's something I'm getting to experience also through my mom. And it's being such a very, very deep experience, and parallel with, I'm getting to understand the crucifixion deeper and to forgive death, body, existence.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much, Dana. That's it. It's like we just pray and pray, then we're given these circumstances to go much deeper in the healing. And I know this was really important for you. You really, really found healings and insights in it through it that you really needed. And now the world looks a little different after you come through one of those. It just doesn't have the same heaviness. It seems much lighter. So it's beautiful. I'm glad this movie could trigger that too, to these memories and everything, because yeah, it's very, very deep walk. But we walked together in this, and that's so beautiful that we were just hand in hand walking through this and letting Jesus just show the way. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mm.
Yeah, thank you, Diana.
Mm. Mm.
Well, that is all of our hands and all of our questions. So it feels like a powerful way to wrap up, if that feels good to you, David.
Yeah, yeah. What a beautiful day together, and then tomorrow with our Easter service at 11 a.m. CST. Yeah, that'll be a beautiful one of music and testimonies. But wow, that was a deep dive again. Every Easter we seem to just dive in deeper and deeper to feel the connection, feel the resurrection. So thank you. Thank you all for joining. I'm just so honored that we could drop through this together. Oh.